National 5 and welcome to our next lesson on World War One, which is why did war break out in 1914. Now, our aims for this lesson, by the end of the lesson, you should be able to describe the causes of World War One. So why did World War One actually start? So we will be looking at a number of reasons why the war started, and some of these pictures, or the theme pictures there, show you three of the main causes of war: alliances, the naval arms race, and an assassination which takes place. So, a wee bit of background to start with. Before 1914, when war starts in 1914, there had been tension increasing between the great powers, and the great powers at this time included Britain, Russia, Germany, France and Austria-Hungary. Now, there was a number of reasons for this tension, some long-term and some short-term. Now, to start with, what I'd like you to do is to think about a modern conflict such as the Afghanistan or Iraq wars. Think about why might countries go to war today, and try and write down any reasons in your jot about why countries might go to war. So if you want to pause the PowerPoint just now and you can write down some reasons about why countries go to war. Now, war can break out between different countries for a number of different reasons. In 1914, war began in Europe for many of the same causes. So, religion, resources, political reasons, financial reasons all contributed to war starting. Now, the causes of World War One are remembered by an acronym known as MAIN. Now, what does MAIN actually stand for? The M stands for militarism. Now, this is where military matters influence a country's policy, which makes them build up their armed forces. Now, in this case, with what we're looking at, there was an arms race between different countries where they're trying to build up and get the biggest military, which causes tension. The A in MAIN stands for alliances. The alliance system saw Europe divided into two sides ultimately, which meant the scene was set for both sides to go against each other. The I stands for imperialism, so this is the desire to conquer other countries. And the N stands for nationalism, so that is the belief that your country is better than other countries as well, which also causes tension. Now, if you want to watch the following video on World War One, this just gives you a wee insight into why World War One starts and a brief overview of it, and this will help you with what we're learning today. So again, if you want to pause the video at this point and just watch this short clip. Okay, now the causes of World War One. The assassination of, in the bottom right hand corner there you'll see Archduke Franz Ferdinand. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand and his wife was critical in setting off the chain of events that led to the First World War. Now, not only was it a bad day for the Archduke and his family, but also a bad day for Europe. And the picture of the guy beside the Archduke is Gavrilo Princip, and he is the man who shot the Archduke and his wife. Okay, and that's a picture of the Archduke and his wife at the top there, getting into their car, and they went on a route and were eventually shot. Now, what we're going to do to find out more about why World War One starts, and ultimately to help you to describe the cause of World War One, is you're going to create a 6-box cartoon strip explaining the three key causes of World War One. So you're going to have 2 boxes for each cause. So you're going to do 2 boxes on the alliance system, you're going to do 2 boxes on the naval race, and you're going to do 2 boxes on assassination. Now, in each box you're looking to include pictures and words, so you're looking to describe really why does World War One start. Imagine you're showing this cartoon strip to somebody that knows nothing about World War One, and you're looking to explain why it causes World War One to start. Now, you can obviously pause this PowerPoint at any point to stop and do certain parts of this task. Over the next few slides, I will give you more information on the alliance system, on the naval race, and on the assassination. And as I said, you can pause at various points to help you to add to your cartoon box. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is the alliance system. Now, alliance number 1, the dual alliance. In 1879, Germany formed an alliance with Austria-Hungary, and you'll see the map there at the bottom. Now, they formally promised to help each other if there was a war, so if either side was attacked, they promised to help each other. Now, this then turned into the Triple Alliance. Now, in 1882, Italy joined Germany and Austria-Hungary to form the Triple Alliance, and they were known as the Central Powers. And the reason for that, if you look at the map there, their countries run down the centre here of Europe. So this is one side to the alliance system. This is the Triple Alliance, and this is Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy. Now, alliance number 2 started with a dual alliance. So in 1894, France made a treaty with Russia. They promised to help each other if a third party attacked either of them. At the same time, there was something called the Entente Cordiale. Now, the countries involved in this were Britain and France. Now, Britain and France had actually been in war with each other for quite a bit, leading up to the 1900s, but they settled their differences over colonies, and there was a friendly agreement. Nothing formal, but a friendly agreement was agreed between France and Britain. Now, they became the Triple Entente. So in 1907, Britain made a similar agreement with Russia, and they settled their colonial differences, and the Triple Entente was created. Okay, now this was not a military alliance to start with, they were just an alliance, the three of those countries together. So the result is this, as you can see at the map below. Europe's now divided into two armed camps. So on one side, in the Triple Entente, you have Great Britain, France and Russia. And on the other side, in the Triple Alliance, you have Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy. The countries shaded in the gold colour there are all neutral countries at this time, so they've not sworn allegiance to any side, they are just neutral and not wanting to be involved in the war. So it's the Triple Alliance versus the Triple Entente. So, the two armed camps that we have, Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy, and the Triple Entente is Britain, France and Russia. So that is one of your first key causes of World War I, is the alliance system. So if you want to complete the first two boxes of your cartoon strip where you explain to the reader ultimately why do these alliances, what are these alliances and why do they maybe cause World War I, the fact that there's now tension on either side, it's two armed camps ready against each other. Now, one of the problems between these camps is between France and Germany, so obviously both in opposing alliance systems, and these two countries did not get along. Germany had invaded France in 1870, and Germany took the lands of Alsace and Lorraine away from France at the end of the Franco-Prussian War. And Alsace and Lorraine was very rich in raw materials, so it was a very, very valuable piece of land. And the French wanted revenge, so ultimately they don't trust each other, France and Germany. So that's already tension between both sides. There's also tension between Russia and Austria-Hungary at this time. Now, more than half of the population of Austria-Hungary was made up of Slavs. Now, they did not want to be part of Austria-Hungary, they wanted their independence. Now, Russia is a Slav nation. So Slavs in Austria-Hungary looked to Russia to help them, and this will be important to what we'll look at later on. And Austria-Hungary blamed Russia for encouraging the Slavs to rebel. Okay, so ultimately, there's part of the population in Austria-Hungary. If you look at the map there, you see that Austria-Hungary shares a border with Russia at this time. So the Slavic people in Austria-Hungary want Russia's help, so that causes tension between both sides as well. So, before 1914, the system of alliances and agreements that we have in place. The dual alliance between Germany and Austria-Hungary starts in 1879, and Italy then joins that to make the Central Powers, and they are the Triple Alliance. France and Russia joined together in the Franco-Russian alliance formed in 1894, and Britain and France signed the Entente Cordiale, where they settled disputes in 1904. Britain, France and Russia formed the Triple Entente in 1907. So ultimately these countries could rely on their allies to back them up. France versus Germany have a dispute over their borders, so Alsace and Lorraine, and Russia and Austria-Hungary have a dispute over the population of the Slavic people. So ultimately Europe is divided into two rival armed camps, very suspicious of each other. So this will help you, as I said, to create the first two boxes of your cartoon strip on the alliance system and how this causes war. Okay, the next two boxes are going to focus on another cause of World War I, which is the Naval Race. Now, the Naval Race. What the Naval Race is all about, it's between Britain and Germany. Now, why did or does Britain need a large navy in comparison to other countries? Now, if you look at the map on the board here, you will see that Britain is an island. So, Britain needs a navy to protect her coastline, to protect her empire at this time, because remember, Britain rules lots of other countries in the world, such as India, Canada, Australia, and Britain needs a navy to protect her trade routes. Now, the Anglo-German naval race, which takes place, is Britain basically felt a strong navy was more important than a strong army. Now, there's a why question there. Think about what we've just discussed. Why would Britain prioritise a stronger navy than a stronger army? Ultimately, they believed in the power standard. So Britain's navy was always bigger than the navies of any two countries put together, and they wanted to continue. Now, why did Germany need a large navy in comparison to other countries? Again, if you look at the map on the board there, Germany needs a navy to protect her coastline as well, to get overseas colonies, and to stop German ports being blocked in a war, because German ports are very important for Germans to get materials in, such as food and raw materials as well. So, in 1873, Germany began a small program of building warships. Now in 1895 they opened the Kiel Canal. Now think about why that might be the case there, what that arrow's showing you there. That gave their ports in the Baltic Sea a quicker route to the North Sea and therefore to Britain. And Britain saw this move as a threat ultimately from Germany. What were they preparing here? If this gives them a quicker route to Britain, is this the possibility of an attack they're preparing? So Britain's response was that fleets stationed overseas were taken home. Old warships were scrapped and built a new type of battleship, and that battleship was the HMS Dreadnought. And new naval bases were built in the Orkney Islands as well, off the top of Scotland. Now the Dreadnought, which you see the picture at the top there, was at the time possibly the best warship in the world, and it was seen as a way to protect Britain. Now, why do you think, a question to consider is, why would Britain do all of this? Think about what we've just discussed. They also feel threatened from Germany, so they are expanding their navy to defend themselves ultimately. Now the Dreadnought, as I mentioned, is bigger, faster, has better guns, so can fire greater distance, had guns that could swivel, so rotate and move, had thick armour plating, so it was hard to destroy, it had 10 guns, older ships only had 4 guns, and by 1914 there was 29 dreadnoughts. Britain believed ultimately that Germany threatened her Royal Navy. Now the Germans had the German Nasus. Now they had their own dreadnoughts which are very similar capacities, and by 1914 they had 17 of these. So Germany believed that Britain was trying to stop her from becoming a great power. So ultimately the naval race causes major tension and suspicion between Britain and Germany. They're both building up their navies against each other. So this is another cause of World War I. So 1900 to 1914, the naval race. So it's between Britain and Germany. Britain wants to protect their coastline, our empire and our trade routes, and believe in the two-power standard. Germany wants to protect its coastline, develop an empire and stop any sort of blockade happening. So Germany began to build up her navy and widened the Kiel Canal. Britain's response was new battleships, fleets returned home, and they set up new naval bases in Orkney. Germany believed that Britain was trying to stop her from becoming a great power, while Britain was convinced Germany was building a navy to threaten Britain. By 1914, Britain had constructed 29 dreadnoughts and Germany 17 Nasuses, and details on dreadnoughts making other ships obsolete. Okay, so the dreadnought was seen as the best ship at this time. It was bigger, faster, could fire the guns at a longer range, had thick armour plating, so it really was the ship of the time. So that causes major tension between Britain and Germany. So filling out your next 2 boxes here, all about the naval race. So think about what we've just discussed. Again, you can pause at this point to add another 2 boxes to your cartoon strip about why the naval race leads to World War I. And the third key cause of World War I is the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Now, who was Archduke Franz Ferdinand? He was the heir to the Austrian throne. He is killed when he visits Sarajevo, which is the capital of Bosnia. Now, why he's killed is he's killed by a terrorist group called the Black Hand Society. So on the 28th of June 1914, the Archduke of Austria and his wife Sofia visited Sarajevo, which is the capital of Bosnia. Serbian nationalists were not happy about Austria-Hungary taking Bosnia. And the Black Hand Society were a Serbian secret organisation and gave training to young Bosnians who were prepared to assassinate the Archduke. So what happens? The day of their visit, the young assassins, the Black Hand Society, waited along the route that the Archduke's car was meant to be going on. A bomb was thrown and exploded but missed the Archduke's car. And the Archduke insisted on visiting the injured in hospital, but the driver goes on another different route. And what happened next was a complete coincidence. 19-year-old Gabriel Princip steps out of a shop after buying a sandwich, and he sees the Archduke and fires 2 shots towards his car. Princip then tries to commit suicide but failed and is arrested. And this is a miniature of the Archduke and his wife who have been assassinated. So the impact this has on World War I. Austria-Hungary blamed the assassinations in Sarajevo on Serbia, and they used it as an excuse to deliver an unrealistic ultimatum to Serbia. So you've got to remember, this is a member of the Austrian-Hungarian royal family that has been assassinated here, and Serbia is being blamed for this. Serbia refused to accept all the points on the ultimatum, which led to war being declared by Austria-Hungary on Serbia. And if you look at the map on the right hand side there, you'll see Austria-Hungary, and just below it Serbia. So Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. Russia then gets involved here. Russia mobilised its support for Serbia, so mobilises its troops to support Serbia, because remember, they're both Slavic countries. As a result of this, Germany then declares war on Russia in support of Austria-Hungary. So if you think back now to the alliance system, because Russia has now mobilised in support of Serbia and is ready to fight Austria-Hungary, Germany has now declared war on Russia to protect Austria-Hungary, part of the alliance system. So this has a snowball effect, which we're going to look at. So countries are now about to start declaring war on each other. So that is the assassination in Sarajevo. So that's your first part of this lesson on the causes of World War I. So if you want to pause at this point and complete your cartoon strip, and what we're going to look at next is what happens next in Europe in 1914. Okay, so what happened in Europe by the end of 1914? So, last part of the lesson we were looking at the causes of World War I, so you should now be able to describe some of the causes. This part of the lesson we're looking at what happened in Europe by the end of 1914. So our aim is by the end of this part is to describe the timescale for the outbreak of war and describe what happened in the opening months of the war. Now remember, just a wee bit of background and recap. From June 28th until August 4th, 1914, the European nations gradually found themselves at war with one another. Now, in all involved countries, a nationalist feeling made men rush to join the armed services. So men were rushing to join up to fight in the army and defend their country. Now, the opening battles that were fought to try and stop Germany capturing large areas of land in northeast France after they invaded Belgium. And this is where Britain declares war, but more on that later on. Germany faced two enemies on two fronts at this point and came up with the Slaven Plan, which failed, leading to the war becoming static, so men fighting in trenches, which we'll also be looking at. So as a result, the war of movement became a war of stalemate and trench warfare. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, think about what you've learned last lesson. There is a card sort sheet which is attached in the files document. So if you look at this sheet and you're looking to write the answers in the correct order, okay, we're going to go over them afterwards. So you have a number of events on your sheet. You need to try and put them in the correct order of what you think happened, and we will then go over them in a moment. So if you want to pause the PowerPoint at this point and go to that task sheet and try and put the events from the card sort activity into the correct answer in your jotter. Okay, so what happens first? This is the first event from your sheet. So on the 28th of June, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, is assassinated in Bosnia. Now Austria blames Serbia for the killing of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and they say it's Serbia that is behind this. So Austria declares war on Serbia, and Belgrade, which is in Serbia, is shelled by lots and lots of bombs. The Russian army then gets itself ready to help Serbia defend itself against Austro-Hungarian attack. Then, as we know, Germany, Austria's ally, sends a demand to Russia ordering it to hold back from helping Serbia. And Germany then declares war on Russia, and it also begins to move its army towards France, which is Russia's ally at this time. The French army is put on a war footing and they're ready to fight a German invasion. And to complete the picture, Austria declares war on Russia. We then have Germany declaring war on France, and it invades France through neutral Belgium, and because of this, Britain orders Germany to withdraw from Belgium. The Germans don't do this, they're still in Belgium, so as a result, Britain then declares war on Germany, and we now have countries fully involved in the war. So, ultimately, the spark that started World War I, it all starts with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife on the 28th of June, 1914. On the 5th of July, Germany agreed to support Austria. So on the 23rd of July, Austria sent an ultimatum of 10 demands to Serbia. Serbia rejected 2 of the demands. So by the 28th of July, Austria had attacked Serbia. So exactly a month after Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated, Austria had now attacked Serbia. On the 29th of July, Russia prepared to help Serbia. And then on the 30th of July, Russia ordered a full mobilisation of its army, so it gets all its army ready to fight. On the 31st of July, Germany told Russia to stop mobilisation. The 1st of August, Germany declares war on Russia. and then the 3rd of August, Germany declared war on France, and that is World War One officially started. That is the spark. The spark being the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, which ultimately leads to war. And the 4th of August, Germany invaded Belgium, and this is where Britain is then brought into the war. Okay, this is quite a famous cartoon which is just showing you how World War One starts as well, and you have Serbia at the front there, just a small person saying, "If you touch me, I'll," and then the next person, Austria, who are attacking Serbia, saying, "If you make a move, I'll," and then Russia attacking Austria, saying, "If you hit that little fella, I'll," and then Germany saying to Russia, "If you strike my friend, I'll," and then France saying, "If you hit him, I'll." So ultimately that ripple effect of countries now defending each other. Now, think about why did Britain join. We've already mentioned briefly about this issue with Belgium. Now, when the war starts, something called the Slaven Plan was invented by the Germans. So the Germans had known for years it would be a risk to fight a war on two fronts because they were sandwiched between France in the west and Russia in the east. So the plan that they came up with was to attack France very, very quickly. Take Paris, surround the French army, and knock the French out of the war, all in 6 weeks. And then Germany then thought they could then use all their troops to target Russia. So the plan to deal with this problem was called the Slaven Plan. It was named after the man who came up with it, General von Slaven. So the plan, as you can see here on the map, was this. To attack France, they were going to use some troops as a distraction to fight them on the border just down from Luxembourg. And the rest of the troops, they would go through neutral Belgium, because remember, Belgium's a neutral country at this time. So they'd go through neutral Belgium, and then they'd be into France, take Paris, and they would be around the back of the French army as well. So they'd be sandwiching the French army in there. So it was almost like a right hook through Belgium and into France. However, the plan didn't work out exactly as they had hoped, because what ends up happening is that Allied troops from Britain arrive in France to help fight, and this ends up leading to a stalemate. So you see how far that Germany actually gets into France, and that blue line that's running through part of Belgium and into France, that is trenches, the trench system which starts. So ultimately this plan to invade France very, very quickly did not happen. It ends up leading to a trench system developing, and war is a stalemate. Neither side is gaining a lot of ground. So why did Britain join? Now, 75 years before, Britain and other countries had signed the Treaty of London, and that said that Belgium was a neutral country, and if any other countries decided to attack it, then the other countries would fight back. Now, the Kaiser of Germany at this time did not believe that Britain would keep to the treaty. Now, he just called it a simple scrap of paper. But did Britain actually want to go to war? It didn't really matter. The reality was that Britain was looking for an excuse to fight Germany, which is what the Kaiser maybe overlooked. But there is an issue here. It does not have a large army. Only the British Expeditionary Force and the Territorial Army, because remember, Britain has prioritised its navy. So these people would need to face the Germans alone until a new volunteer army could be created. So that's why they encourage and men do rush up to join. Okay, so what happened in Europe by the end of 1914? So you should now be able to describe the timescale for the outbreak of war. So starting with the assassination of Franz Ferdinand right up until Britain declaring war on Germany. And you should be able to describe what happened in the opening months of the war. So that's where we discussed Germany invading France through Belgium, but then British troops arrive and we have a stalemate in France. Okay, and that leads to the creation of the Western Front as it's known, and the trench system. Your last task for today is to try and explain question. So we're going to look to explain the causes of World War One. Now you've done explain questions in first to third year. Remember how we answer an explain question. We answer this using the A, B, C and the optional D format. Now, what does each stand for? Remember, the A is where you are answering the question. Okay, so A stands for answer. So you are simply naming the reason and also using the wording of the question. The B just stands for the word because, so you write the word because, and then the C stands for comment, so you state exactly what the impact your answer had on the question topic. The D there is an option, develop. If you want, you can add an example or extra piece of evidence to gain an extra mark. The YouTube symbol there has a link to answering this question in a bit more detail as well. Now, if you think about the question, explain the cause of World War One, you can start off by saying there were many events and factors that led to World War One. Now, this is an example. This is one mark that you would get here, so you can see. Firstly, the arms race helped cause World War One. Now, that is your answer. You've mentioned the arms race being a cause, and you've said helped cause World War One. So that is your answer there. You've not got any marks so far. You've just given us a reason there. You'll then see you've got the word because, and it then says countries, particularly Germany and Britain, were competing against each other to have a bigger navy, which caused tension. So that is your comment there. You've commented on the arms race. So that would get you 1 mark there. Now, an explain question is worth 6 marks, so that means you need to give 6 points. So you're then going to say secondly, and give another reason, help cause World War One because. And you'll do the same thing for thirdly, fourthly, fifthly, and lastly. If you prefer to try and develop your points, then you could develop them further. So, for example, for that first point there where it says, firstly, the arms race helped cause World War One because countries, particularly Germany and Britain, were competing against each other to have a bigger navy, which caused tension. To develop that point further, you could mention the fact that both sides were building dreadnoughts to compete against each other because they both felt threatened by the size of each other's navies. So that is a way of developing it. However, if you want to just do A, B, C, which is just worth 1 mark, then you need to do 6 points like that. Once you've answered this question, if you make sure you upload this via the assignment tab. Okay, thank you.